Right at the beginning of the Year of Mercy, we were trying to get the chapel ready to host all the extra visitors. And we had over 3 million visitors during the Year of Mercy at the Chapel Holy Cross. And one of the pieces that I commissioned was a corpus to replace the one that had been taken down years before. And the chapel was always naked. It was like when you came in it, there wasn't, it was almost anticlimactic because there was nothing there to focus on. And the new piece is going to be 33 feet tall when it's finished. The chapel started with a woman by the name of Margarita Stadi. And coming to Sedona is when Margarita had this notion that this would be the place to build this small chapel. And as she looked around, she found a spot that she thought would work. She hired some architects from San Francisco that were excited about the project. They came out. They selected the site where the chapel is now. They did the engineering for it. They knew it would work. The big problem became because the land wasn't private land. It was owned by the federal government, by the Forest Service, was getting permission from the government to build this chapel. And so that happened through Senator Barry Goldwater. And the construction began in 1955, finished in 1957. The entire building is built out of aggregate concrete. It's all, I think it's 6 separate pours. Each were 8 to 10 feet in height. Initially in that church, there was an aluminum, it was 14 feet by 14 feet. It was a corpus. It was called the Atomic Christ, and it was meant to show the enormous suffering of mankind and the suffering that Christ bore. And I always thought it looked like, those shots you saw of Hiroshima after the atomic war, as bodies kind of melted, and that was what was kind of caught in that image. And so it was there for a number of years, and then Margarita Stadi, who had built the chapel, got so much hate mail about it, and she herself, the more she thought about it, thought it detracted from what her purpose was for the chapel, which was to be this place where beauty and God's love embraced us. And so she took it down. She secretly came in the middle of the night with a bunch of workers, took it down, chopped up the pieces, and scattered the Mojave Desert with them. And one of the reasons I commissioned the new piece, and I commissioned it to match what Margarita originally wanted, which was that she wanted the corpus to reflect the love of God. And this huge, monumental piece. At first, of course, it was a matter of finding an artist, and I stumbled across James Muir, really, through the Goldenstein Gallery, where a lot of his pieces are. And I was just amazed at his work. And so James and I had an initial meeting, and we talked about the project. And his biggest problem was he's a very devout Protestant Christian, but they don't believe in putting the body on the cross. And I was trying to explain to him, and we had conversations over, probably a month or two, about why Catholics insist on putting that body on the cross. And it's not to show the agony and the suffering and the horribleness of what our sins cause Christ, but it's just the opposite. It's to show the love of Christ for us. And I think I saw the light bulb come on. And once he understood what I was trying to do, he jumped into it. And boy, I tell you, did he jump into it.
This piece came to me in large part because the Quo Vadis was purchased by a friend of ours and donated to St. John Vianney. So they have it there, and they've had it there since about 1992. And when Father Kieran came in to take over the church, he was aware of the Quo Vadis. So he came to me on this piece, and he was a wonderful sounding board because he has given me virtually free rein to create the piece with the symbology and the allegories that I just felt needed to be in it. And so I had a sense of what could be incorporated into this piece, and I bounce ideas off of him, and he'd say, yeah, okay, now what if we did this? Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Now what if we did that, and then this too? So never once did he say no, never once. And that's to his credit and my salvation that I was on track apparently enough, if I just get me out of the way, to render a concept that I hope and pray will indeed last for hundreds of years.
He told me the other day that this will probably be his last monumental piece, just because of the enormous amount of work. We had looked at other ways of doing this. We had thought about wood, we had thought about aluminum, but the only thing that made sense, that really would be beautiful but also last forever, was bronze. And so this really should be an inspiration to everyone that looks at it. I'm really excited. 2 years ago, I commissioned a new Christus for the Chapel of the Holy Cross, and the day for its installation is finally here. Yesterday, a truck came carrying the 7 pieces of bronze that will form the Tree of Life and the new Christus. It will be 33 feet high and weigh 2,400 pounds. The crane is arriving today to lift those pieces from the truck. It will be brought inside the chapel, and the crew of 7 from Metal Physics Sculpture will be here, the people that actually produce the bronze, to spend the next few days installing it. The scaffolders were here for the last 2 days, putting up the scaffolding to the ceiling of the chapel, and we're ready to go.
The installation for James's sculpture was something that we've never really done here at Metal Physics. Most installations we subcontract out to other companies, but nobody would touch this because it was so complicated, so difficult, and required such specialized knowledge about how to assemble these pieces that no one else would do it. For the install, we had a template that we had made, so we know, because we have to drive anchors into the wall, and so from that template, we bring it in and we think, oh my gosh, it's too small, because we had been seeing everything on the ground for months. We've been seeing everything on the ground. But when you go there and you see the sheer size of what 35 feet looks like straight up, you think, and you look at it lengthwise, you think that's not long enough, and we screwed up and we're totally hosed. But luckily, all the measurements came out. We threw that template on there and it was spot on. It fit perfectly. It was so much stress was just relieved in that moment, knowing that the template worked, because once we knew the template worked, everything else would fit, because everything was based off of that template that we created out of steel.
This is the tallest piece indoors that I've ever done, and that's kind of got unique and specific challenges. Whereas normally a sculpture gets assembled and it's one piece, or anything large goes outside. So you bring a big truck and you stick it in the ground and everybody walks away. Whereas this has to be totally disassemblable and assemblable, and then no machinery to raise it essentially. So it's got a lot of really specific and unique challenges.
And it was quite the challenge for us, because none of us have gone out on site. To have 6 of us crew members half the shop basically going out to install a sculpture especially one of this size and scale. Each piece would take about half a day, if not longer, essentially to fit on there, because they had to fit onto bolts that we had just anchored into the wall. And then we had to make each piece fit within each other with the seamlessness that the average viewer down below would not be able to see or make out.
It's too early for me to feel relieved. You know, the light at the end of the tunnel, you can see it, but I also see the, you know, I can't tell if it's an oncoming train or the actual light at the end of the tunnel. So when we get all the pieces up, I'll be really proud and excited to see it.
It was quite the opportunity for us, and it was intimidating, but it was also very exciting for us because it's not every day you get to build something on this scale. And everybody has their own little part to play, and we have to work it all together in order to accomplish this piece. This piece demanded so much more than your ordinary sculpture in order to build it, to create it, to install it, and I'm really glad that I was able to be a part of that.
Sedona has certainly become a place in recent years where a lot of people come searching for some ultimate meaning or some kind of meaning or purpose in their lives. And I'm convinced as a parish church, we have the great gift of the Chapel of the Holy Cross, which can be such a tool to help people find themselves, their purpose, help them find God, and find something to believe in and hope in and trust in. And it was our first parish church, and it's intimately connected with who we are as a parish congregation.
It's a result of not just the design, the architecture of the building, the design, the sculpting of the piece, the view of the red rock, but there's something else there, intangible. That's what they need to feel. Everything else will just nudge them closer and closer to feeling something that ideally will not leave them. I think that even the little kids that come in here and don't know what they're seeing, maybe years later are going to remember when Mom and Dad who took them to Sedona, and they had so much fun in Oak Creek, but they remember this chapel they went into and that man up on the cross, and just the feel of that, a peaceful feel that maybe someday, years hence, they'll say, I want that. How do I get that back? And that will start them on the journey that we're all on to find that final inner peace.
I lit my candles, and then I looked up, and I literally felt that God was looking at me, and He was telling me everything's gonna be okay.
As you look up, and you say in your prayers, and you look up, and it's like He's looking down at you, and He's listening of what you are saying. So it was a beautiful experience being here.
It was really profound, just the sculpture and looking at the face of Jesus and seeing sorrow, but also seeing the love that He has for people.
Going in there and looking at that beautiful piece, I couldn't stop, staring at it. It was very inspirational, and it definitely belongs here.
As well as emotional. Very well done.
Walking in there, I felt almost overwhelmed. It was when I saw the size of it looking down on us. It really took my breath away.
It was not like anything I've ever seen before. The traditional Christ on the cross is one of suffering and His death. And this one here, it was just the opposite totally. It was an image of hope, of Christ looking at you and saying, everything's going to be all right. This is my purpose. This is how it has to be, but don't worry. And I think very emotional, very, very emotional.